Welcome back to WristFind. Today we're going to be unboxing and taking a first look at the Casio A168. We're going all Casio today. I got on the Casio Edifice EFR. This is one of my favorite watches. And then for comparison's sake, I also brought in the Casio F91W and the Casio A158. These are probably the two most similar watches to the A168 that we'll be unboxing today. So we'll use these as a point of reference for size and design. All right, so let's get into this watch. Pretty basic Casio packaging. We got the outer sleeve and then the classic blue inner box. So let's pull off the top and get a first look at the watch. Very standard Casio packaging on the inside. We got the plastic sleeve on top of the watch. We got the flimsy card that you can take out. This tells us a little bit about the backlight, the alarm and stopwatch functions, and the water resistance, which if it's like any of the other Casios is actually not rated for much water resistance. But let's pull this watch out and take a look without the plastic on. All right, so there's the A168 in all her glory. So obviously just off of first impressions, it looks very similar to its counterpart, the A158. But there are a few pretty obvious differences just at first glance. The A158 is a little bit more muted in its colors, while the A168 pops out a little bit more. It's got this brighter blue band around the entire face and much brighter color on the text as compared to the A158. Let's pop this watch off the stand and get a closer look at the bracelet. So the bracelet is actually noticeably different, which I wasn't really expecting. They both have this very muted, brushed stainless steel look to them, but the A168 has smaller links as compared to the A158. It's hard to say that either one has a distinctly better look to it, but I do like the look of these smaller links on the A168. I think it just looks a little bit more modern, which is kind of a cool contrast to the rest of the watch. The back of the bracelets have the exact same clasp mechanism, where you just pop up the clasp and the entire bracelet comes apart. I don't love the adjustment mechanism on these Casios. I think it's a little bit annoying whenever you have to adjust it, but the nice thing is that once you do get the right size for your wrist, it is really easy to pop these things on and off. By the way, I picked this watch up on Amazon. That's pretty much where I get all my watches. So if you're looking for this exact model, I'll leave a link down below. All right, let's get a couple dimensions and do some size comparisons. So the watch comes in at just over 35 millimeters in width, about 38.5 millimeters lug to lug, and a case thickness of just over 9.5 millimeters. And let's compare that to its little brother, the A158, which comes in at 33 millimeters in width, about 36 millimeters lug to lug, and just over 8.5 millimeters thick. So it's definitely a notably smaller watch, especially when it comes to case width and case thickness. But honestly, looking at these watches head on, I don't think this is a major eye-catching difference, especially when it comes to the overall size of the case. We'll see how the A168 feels on the wrist and if it feels much bigger or if I really notice that thickness. But honestly, just visually, I don't think there's a massive notable difference. Now, from my understanding, the biggest difference with the A168 is that this is actually a stainless steel case instead of the resin case on the A158. So the bracelets on both of them are this brushed stainless steel, but on the A158 we have this actually plastic or resin case, in contrast with the supposed stainless steel case on the A168. Now, I gotta be honest, I would really never be able to tell you that if I didn't know it, and I'm almost having a hard time believing that this is really a stainless steel case. Supposedly it is, but it really looks and feels exactly the same as the A158. So I guess we just take their word for it that the A168 has a stainless steel case, or maybe I'm wrong about that. Let me know down in the comments if I'm getting this completely wrong and the A168 doesn't have a stainless steel case. At any rate, I don't really care about what material the case is made out of. I think the watch is awesome looking and I want to test it out on the wrist to see how it actually feels. So let's pop off the Edifice and get this new watch on. Again, one of the things I find really annoying is adjusting this clasp on the back, but one trick I found is you can actually use the other end of the bracelet to undo this clasp. So if you hook the end in that little hole there, you can pry this piece up and then you can slide this clasp up or down depending on where you need it to go. So it's kind of a guessing game. You just have to play around with it and see what works. But actually, I think I kind of nailed it on that first try. All right, there we go. Yeah, fits really well with that sizing. So like I've said in my review of these other two watches, one of the first things things you notice with these Casios is just how light they feel and how you almost forget that they're on your wrist. And this A168 is certainly no exception to that. Even though supposedly it has a heavier case, you really don't feel the difference. This is an incredibly light watch and it really does not wear any different than the A158. So the first thing I notice in terms of differences isn't the case size itself, but definitely the thickness. And again, this thing is less than 10 millimeters thick. This is by no means a thick or obtrusive watch, but just purely in comparison to the A158, it definitely does sit up a little bit higher on the wrist. But that is by no means a bad thing. In fact, I think it actually looks kind of nice. I think it fits my wrist a little bit better than the smaller A158. Although I do like the very casual and small look of the A158. I think this has an equally nice look. It's just a little bit different. But obviously it's got the same classic Casio retro look to it, just with a slightly bolder presentation with the colors and the dimensions. Now, one of the other major differences with this watch as compared to the A158 is the backlight. So there's a very tiny underpowered backlight on the A158 that even in really low light situations barely lights up the screen. But the slightly heftier A168 has what they call illuminator, which is a more robust backlight. So we'll test it right now first with lights fully on. I don't really expect to see anything here, and then we'll turn off the lights and test it again. All right, so this is me pressing the illuminator backlight with full lights on. So I can't see anything there. I don't think anything's picking up on camera. And if we tested the A158, you definitely can't see anything. So let's turn off one light and see if there's any difference. All right, so with one light off, you actually can start to see that glow. So you can see the entire screen gets backlit with this sort of blue turquoise light. And again, we're gonna test the A158 for comparison. So really nothing, you can't see anything there. Okay, so let's flip off the last light and see how the backlight works in complete darkness. That's pretty cool. You can see the Edifice EFR on the table there really glowing. All right, so that is much more impressive in complete darkness. So you can see it doesn't pick up super well on camera, but the entire screen glows when you press that button. Yeah, that is surprisingly hard to capture on camera, but it really does light up the entire screen with that really obvious bright turquoise light. You can even see it's sort of like a pseudo flashlight if you point it at something. And again, for comparison's sake, let's take a look at the A158. So the A158 actually shows up better on camera. It has this sort of light green glow to it, but I think because it's so underpowered, it actually shows up better in low light here. Whereas the A168 is so bright that it actually kind of blinds the camera here. But hopefully that gives you a good comparison side by side of how powerful these backlights are. So really those are the main highlights and features of the A168. It's a classic Casio watch. It's gonna have a really long battery life. It's gonna be reliable. Got a stopwatch function, an alarm clock. It tracks the date, the time. But the biggest selling points of this watch are definitely gonna be that really strong backlight and also the slightly larger case dimensions. But overall, I think this is another fantastic Casio watch. We'll see if I end up wearing this one more than the A158, but just off the bat, I imagine that's probably gonna be the case. It's just a little heftier and I think it fits my wrist a bit better. And I like the slightly bolder, brighter look to it. So what do you think? Do you like this watch? Do you think it's redundant? Do you think it's too similar to the A158? Or is it worth having both of these watches or paying the extra few bucks to get the A168? Let me know down in the comments below and let me know if there's any other watches you want me to review in future videos. I'm always looking for a good excuse to buy another watch, so let me know if there's anything you want to see. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more watch content and watch reviews, and I'll see you in the next video.